Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Karen Ware-Jackson. I'm the webinar coordinator for PRC, Practical Resources for Churches. We are a nonprofit ecumenical resource center offering consultants, workshops, webinars, and resources to congregations and individuals. This is our first webinar in our virtual choir series, and we're pleased to be offering this in partnership with Worship Design Studio and Dr. Marcia McPhee, who is one of our presenters today. We've tried to cover both general topics for creating a virtual ensemble and also specific webinars for audio and video editing. And we'll be posting the registration links for the other webinars in the chat now. We have everything from kind of getting started to specifics, using Audacity, using GarageBand, using DaVinci Resolve. We also want to note next Wednesday night is a webinar that is specifically for members of your choir to help them learn how to create a clean video recording. And please go ahead and they can register for those using the links that are in the chat. But you can also go to www.prcli.org, click on webinars, and you can find more webinars there. PRC, we have offered our webinars free of charge because of the generosity of our subscribing congregations and individuals, and of course the judicatories that are on your screen now. They support PRC so that their congregations can use their services. If you are a subscribing individual or a member of a subscribing congregation or one of these judicatories, or if you are a member of Worship Design Studio, we want you to know that all of the webinars in the virtual choir series are free for you. If you're not, we do ask that you would consider supporting PRC by making a donation, a $10 donation, or by becoming a subscriber. And you can do those using the links in the chat as well, posting those as well. And finally, I would like to introduce our webinar presenters for today. Our presenters today are Dr. Marcia McPhee and Mark Miller. Dr. Marcia McPhee understands the role of any worship artist in the church as that of creating extraordinary portals through which communities journey with the Spirit. The task is at once deeply theological and wonderfully artistic, connecting worship professionals and volunteers to their passion and depth of spiritual leadership and skills. To carry this out has been her aim in teaching and consulting for 25 years. She is the creator and visionary of the Worship Design Studio, which is an online educational and resource website that serves churches in several countries and denominations. She is also the author of the best-selling Think Like a Filmmaker, Sensory-Rich Worship Design for Unforgettable Messages. She is the Ford Fellow Visiting Professor of Worship at San Francisco Theological Seminary, as well as teaching online courses for several other seminaries. Mark Miller believes that everyone is a child of God and that music is instrumental in healing the world. He also adheres to Cornel West's belief that justice is what love looks like in public. Since 2006, he has been a lecturer in sacred music at Yale's Institute of Sacred Music and Divinity School. Mark is an associate professor of church music, the director of chapel, and composer in residence at Drew University in Madison, New Jersey, and is the minister of music of Christ Church, UCC, and AME Baptist in Summit, New Jersey. Mark is a graduate of Juilliard and Yale University, and we are so thankful and blessed to have them with us as presenters today. Marcia and Mark, welcome.
Thank you so much, Karen. Mark, do you love the screenshot that I...
Yep.
One thing I can say is that we have a good time, and we're so blessed to get to do what we love in our ministries, and that is to make worship and music, and get to teach that as well. So I snapped this earlier, and it just kind of is the heart of who we are, because we believe that even in the midst of difficult times, and perhaps especially in the midst of difficult times, music and worship can reconnect us. And that's what today is really about. Worship Design Studio is honored to be partnering with the Practical Resource Center. We did one early in the pandemic, just as people were beginning to figure out, like, I think it was the week right after the first Sunday where people were trying to do online worship back in March. And look where we are. We're still trying to hone that, get new skills, and keep bringing the Word of God alive for folks. So I'm grateful for their partnership on this. I'm also, as usual, thrilled to be with my partner, Mark Miller, on this. And today is the first of several webinars, and we are pleased to be part of it. Today is really kind of an introductory webinar, if you will. We are going to show a little bit, I'm going to have Mark show us a little bit of how he does this virtual choir thing. But for the most part, what we want to do today is address sort of the pre-question to the rest of the how-to webinars. And that's, should we try this? Should we put the effort in to learn this? The why of it is really what this moment is about, and a bit of encouragement for you to actually try it. You know, Mark and I, our first kind of skill set is not actually editing videos, but we have actually had a lot of fun learning to do it. I'm speaking for you, Mark. Would this be true for you as well?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we want to share sort of our journey to becoming convinced that this is something that's really helpful, show you some examples. And, you know, pastors, if you're on here and wondering if you'll be able to convince music folks to go for it or vice versa, this is the webinar out of all of them that you'll want to watch together to sort of get the foundation of why we would want to be doing this. So I want to start with a poll. Karen's going to pop up a poll here just so we can get to see who's on here. The first poll is going to be about finding out how you are gathering for worship. And I think you can select as many as apply to you. So you might be clicking more than one. So you see that in front of you, and yeah, people are answering. Awesome. Great. This is so cool. It's going to I don't know how long this goes, so we'll see. Karen can tell us.
We can stop it whenever you're ready.
Okay.
I usually stop it once we get, you know, the answers slow down a little bit.
Okay. I'll let you can stop it for me, right?
Okay. I can stop it, and I will show the results. We've got about 90% of our folks voting, so I'm going to go ahead and end polling now and let y'all see where everyone is. There you go. So about half of our folks, 48%, are using Zoom or other interactive meeting platforms. The highest number is really just over half with pre-recorded worship. Nice. And, you know, 24%, so about a quarter, are meeting in person without singing. And then there are a few that are also meeting in person and singing.
Great, great. Really interesting. Thank you. So I'm going to be asking Mark to help us get a glimpse into what it's been like for him to be doing this for many weeks. And I believe you're doing pre-recorded at your worship, but you're also doing Zoom worship at the seminary. So you've got a little bit of experience in both things, but you use these pre-recorded virtual choir pieces in both of those settings, correct?
Yes, we do.
Which is really great that you can do one thing and it can serve different purposes.
Exactly. Yeah, that's life-saving.
Yeah. Well, can you all hear the jackhammer that just started outside my window?
No.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Because that's the blessing of Zoom, isn't it? Okay, so Mark, would you just start us off a moment by telling us why you put the effort into doing this? You do a lot. You're busy. You actually teach in a couple of places. You freelance. Why do you make time to create virtual singing ensembles?
Great question. And sometimes I ask myself that question as well. And I'm sure, like many of you, when we first started going virtual in the middle of March, I had no intention of doing virtual choirs. I said, you know, I've seen it done before and it takes too much time and I have no interest. Well, that changed. That changed rather remarkably. Talk about getting knocked off your horse, like from Saul to Paul. So I came up with some reasons why, and one of the reasons why was I needed to do it. I needed to try. After a couple of weeks of saying I can't do this, I was like, well, maybe I can, and there are people there that can help me, and they did. And then secondly, choir members needed to try it. Choir members wanted to sing, and in those early days in New Jersey, we were not at all going to be together in a space. So that was important. Choir members said they could do it. The third reason uh, was because it helped keep community in front of us. Literally, our faces were on the screen, and it helped remember us back into community, the virtual choir. And then finally, I did it and then continued to do it because it was achievable. It was something I found out that I could do, and
Awesome.
even short-staffed and even not doing it professionally, I could do it. It was achievable.
So you heard it here, you can do it. And that's kind of what I went through as well, is when I began to edit videos, and this was years ago that I began to edit videos. I never dreamed that those skills would come in handy right now, but it really, I've been teaching some tutorials for worship design studio members about beginning to edit videos, and people are learning. They're doing it, and some are going, oh my gosh, I'm having so much fun with this. So at a certain level, it's kind of like skiing. I wrote a book on the spiritual practice of skiing, and part of the metaphor is that you fall down, you fall down, you fall down, and then when it clicks, all of a sudden it's like, whee, and there's a whole new skill set, and I found that to be true. So Mark and I had a discussion this summer that led to us designing an Advent series that just launched today, Christmas in September. And we're using a wonderful anthem, probably, I think it's Mark's best-selling anthem. It may be Chorister Guild's best-selling anthem, called I Believe Even When. And we talked about how we had been getting so many people contacting us saying, how are we going to do Christmas? How are we going to do Advent without singing? And so we felt like it was really important to address that head on. And so Fill the Night with Music and Light is the subtitle of it. And the whole series is about music appreciation. And so we also, when we talked in that conversation, we thought we really want to support choirs and bands, ensembles, musicians in this time, because they're coming back maybe from a usual summer off, right? But coming back to the fall when they thought they might be getting to come back together, and they're not. And so it's a whole new level of disappointment around that, right? And so we decided to put our effort, Mark and I, into creating something that would support you in having something for your choirs to work on. And so that was sort of the genesis of thinking about this virtual choir webinar experience. And then I found out that PRC was going to be doing it as well. And so we're so glad to put that together. But that may be something that your choir is feeling, or your band, your musicians are feeling, this extended pandemic situation. It's a whole other level of disappointment here this fall. And so if we can be doing some things, getting ready for Advent even, so that you're not pressured time-wise, you give yourself plenty of time to put it together, that your choir can have something to work on. And so we wanted to support you in that. The communion prayer from that series, I use a song by Jim Burklow called Deeper Love. And the Sanctus in it is one of the verses from that song. And I think this gets at the heart of what we're hoping that you will catch the spirit of. And that is, now Mary sings her birthing song till every voice can sing along, and voices weak will rise up strong. Her choir is one where all belong. And Mark and I feel very deeply about all belonging in that choir. And so, there are many ways that we can use this technology and learn to edit video, especially for virtual choirs, that you will use in various different ways. So, Mark, that verse, all belonging is really important to both of us.
Mhm.
How has doing virtual choirs with your church choir, how has it helped with this sense of belonging that we're kind of missing out on because we're separated?
Mm. Well, it certainly, I mean, I've talked to many choirs over the last 6 months. We've met them on Zoom, and people are finding ways to stay connected. I know many of you have weekly Zoom sessions or rehearsals with your choirs on Zoom, just so people can stay connected. Um, when I when I make recordings for my choir, I probably choirs just like your own, where we have people that are who should be singing professionally, maybe they're in the choir, and people who can't uh, hold the melody. And one of the beautiful things about this virtual choir is that all can participate, and and I get to use my influence as the the overlord choir director who can take the volumes, but to see everyone's face and to see everyone participate, it really it brings joy to many people. Um, the challenge, of course, is not everyone can participate. We have just a couple members who live farther away and cannot manage the technology. But they still have been very heartened by coming online and seeing the choir and knowing that in this time we're continuing to sing, and they could sing at home. But
Yeah, we might talk later on about some workarounds for stuff like that. I did an adaptations and protocols document in my new Advent series to help people think about this, and buddying people up, finding people who can go do the technological part for folks. We might think about ways that we can connect even multiple generations in safe protocol kinds of ways to help make that happen. So creating the connection is not just the finished product, but it's also the process of it, perhaps. Absolutely. Mark, would you set up this? I'm going to show this video that you showed me a few days ago, and this was from this choir in New Haven. Let's use this as kind of a moment to center ourselves and to remember that there's a really good reason to think about connecting our community through music and staying connected in this time. Tell us a little bit about this.
Sure. I was approached early in the summer by a recent graduate of the Yale School of Music. She had taken on a job as a community singer, Stephanie Tubiola, community director of a young adults choir, that she was partnering with high school kids in New Haven, Connecticut, and partnering with some of the students, the graduate students, creating a multi-generational, multi-ethnic choir. And she said, could we sing Even Here? It seems to be one of the favorites of the kids. It's an anthem I wrote with Laurie Zellman. It's actually from a children's musical that we did on Jonah and the Whale, where Jonah's in the belly of the whale. And Even Here, asking the question, she said, that seemed really very meaningful for the young people. Can God's love in this time find me even here? Yes, that's the answer. For me, this song is an affirmation that yes, love will find you where you're at.
Can the
Oh, Mark, how did you feel when you got that from them? I mean, they put that together, right?
They put it together. I just recorded and then they did the rest, and I was blown away. I mean, overwhelmed and very grateful and very humbled.
Yeah. So I want to ask folks who are on the webinar in the chat. I'm wondering if you would just in the chats, what did you notice as you watched that? What did you notice about it? It may be some technical things that you thought had a good effect. But even more, what did it evoke in you as you watched it? I got a sense of, the first time I saw it, I got a sense of the presence, like coming through the screen. And, there's a lot we can do to analyze that, but what did it evoke in you? What hopeful text, powerful, renews my hope, beautiful, beautiful song, um, hopefulness. Yeah. So tears. Me too. The first time I watched it, and of course, right now I'm doing several things. But the first time I watched it, I just was really drawn in and connected to my own hopefulness. And when it got to Die in Peace, I just lost it. I think that we have, as a community, felt so many losses from physical death to the loss of jobs, the loss of so much. And so, music has that power to help us to uncover that and deal with that in healthy and hopeful ways. Chill bumps. It felt intimate. Ooh, let's talk about. I think that's so true. Mark, what's your take on why that feels so intimate?
Well, just like in preaching and worship, you're face to face. That's why I mean, I'll show personal prejudice here that I am much less engaged when people start preaching from
Right.
far away, and I really like it when I get to be. It's an intimacy. It's an immediate
Yeah.
intimacy that you get from the musicians, and uh, yeah, and you see it in those kids' faces, and yeah, that's a big piece of it for me. And I love the fact that people are saying it doesn't have to be perfect. That's
Right.
exactly right. That's
Exactly.
exactly right. And
I
of
think
course,
that
I mean,
holds people back a little bit
yeah.
from
And
trying it.
for me, those people, those kids were pretty perfect. I mean, I
I
don't have a
know.
choir.
Amazing,
Yeah, I
right?
don't have a choir that does quite as well as that, and um, in terms of like the high level of musicality.
Yeah.
But their willingness just to do it, and the participation, the number of people participating was really moving too.
Right. So, over the course of these webinars, friends, you're going to learn the technicalities of things. And it's going to be really important to learn that skill set. But I also want to plant a seed here in this first webinar that just as important as all the technicalities and are people singing on tune and, how do you edit and that kind of thing is just what is the ethos of the song? What's the feel what's the message you're trying to get across? And that's going to, every time Mark looked into the camera from the keyboard, that shot of you sideways and looking at us, it creates this connection. And so that is just as important as whether you're singing on key or whether you got all the editing completely lined up, right? So I want to show another video, and this one is of a little tiny church in San Francisco, pastored by Kelly O'Connor, and she sent this to me yesterday. And I asked her if we could show it, and I'm going to show it because it's an example of using the same technology that you will use for choirs, virtual choirs, for responsive readings and for perhaps singing hymns. And you'll see something that's a little less polished in terms of the singing, but nevertheless brings that spirit of togetherness. So let's take a look at this.
O Lord, when the waters rage and foam, still the storms and grant us your peace. When the gift of creation becomes burden, still the storms and grant us your peace. When the fears threaten to overtake us, still the storms and grant us your peace. Speak your word to the wind and to the water. Fill us with faith. Show us your care. In the service of others, fill us with compassion. Make the joy of your peace overflow in our lives. Fill us with hope.
They have used the same technology to do a call and response. And in my, what I call threshold moment, which is kind of the introit to my new series, I have the choir is singing a bit, and then they do a call and response with a leader and the choir members speaking the response. And so, there are many different ways that you can use this. Let's do another poll, Karen. Let's pull up a poll that finds out, so we can see of folks who are on here, how are you facilitating congregational singing in your worship now? So we've got accompaniment and lead vocals, accompaniment only, virtual choir ensemble, instrumental music, licensing music from recording artists. Let's see how you're doing it.
We could have the benefit of getting to see the results come in live. And so we get to watch. The majority of folks, it's looking like, as the responses are coming in, most people are using accompaniment and lead vocals, which I think is smart. We're at about 80%, so I'm going to go ahead and end polling and let you all see.
Great. Well, that's really helpful. You know, I saw a lot of churches at the beginning of the pandemic just doing instrumentals at hymn time or band, you know, and I think what we have found is that people at home will sing along if they have somebody to sing with, right? So I've seen a lot of churches shift from just instrumental to having people to sing along with, and I think that's a great move. Mark, any shifts in the way that you did it at the beginning of the pandemic as opposed to what you're doing now?
Yeah, I was doing accompaniment only for a little bit at the beginning, just to get my bearings, and but now we use accompaniment and lead vocals mostly. Virtual choir sometime, and one of my tricks for virtual choir is that even though we have, you know, it's a 25-member choir, 26-member choir, I typically only ask 6 or 8 people to sing at one time. That makes it much more manageable, and I kind of go through a roster of people asking them. So
nice. And so that means that people aren't doing a whole lot every week, and it's easier for you to manage, but everybody gets to be part of it at some point.
Exactly.
Great technique. Yeah, fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about the why of making this effort in this moment. We've already started talking about that, but I want to get more into why it might be especially important in this difficult time for many reasons, especially emotionally. So I want to play a little excerpt from a TED Talk by a man named Robert Gupta, who is he's a violinist for the LA Philharmonic. And in one of his TED Talks, he talks about how he wanted to be a doctor, but he also had this love of music. And then he realized he could put both together. And so he does a lot of work around the power of music on our mental, emotional states, and works a lot with marginalized populations, homeless and those incarcerated, and you know, making sure that music is a big part of their lives and their recovery. We're going to watch just a short couple-minute clip of him talking, and he talks first about a man who was played by Jamie Foxx, actually, in a movie about him called The Soloist, a musician who was a Juilliard, I think, trained, and developed schizophrenia. And at the beginning of this clip, we see him talking about how this man had come to him for a lesson. And over the course of that lesson, he saw him move from a very disturbed state to this just really grounded person. So he does that, but he talks about music as medicine. So let's just take a look at what he says about this.
And through playing music and talking about music, this man had transformed. From the paranoid, disturbed man that had just come from walking the streets of downtown Los Angeles to the charming, erudite, brilliant Juilliard-trained musician. Music is medicine. Music changes us. And for Nathaniel, music is sanity. Because music allows him to take his thoughts and delusions and shape them through his imagination and his creativity into reality. And that is an escape from his tormented state. And I understood that this was the very essence of art. This was the very reason why we made music, that we take something that exists within all of us at our very fundamental core, our emotions. And through our artistic lens, through our creativity, we're able to shape those emotions into reality. And the reality of that expression reaches all of us and moves us, inspires and unites us.
Just as medicine serves to heal more than the building blocks of the body alone, the power and beauty of music transcends the E in the middle of our beloved acronym. Music transcends the aesthetic beauty alone. The synchrony of emotions that we experience when we hear an opera by Wagner or a symphony by Brahms or chamber music by Beethoven compels us to remember our shared common humanity, the deeply communal, connected consciousness, the empathic consciousness that neuropsychiatrist Ian McGilchrist says is hardwired into our brain's right hemisphere. And for those living in the most dehumanizing conditions of mental illness within homelessness and incarceration, the music and the beauty of music offers a chance for them to transcend the world around them, to remember that they still have the capacity to experience something beautiful and that humanity has not forgotten them. And the spark of that beauty, the spark of that humanity transforms into hope. And we know whether we choose the path of music or of medicine, that's the very first thing we must instill within our communities, within our audiences, if we want to inspire healing from within.
So music is medicine, and I think that's something we really need right now, is to address, the loss and the feeling of needing to be connected. He talks about being hardwired in our brains, and this is so very true, that there is a physiological response that especially happens when we are next to each other singing. And what's really cool about our limbic system is able to sync with others. It's called the law of entrainment. But we also have these things called mirror neurons. And even though we're not together physically, when we experience music, even as a video piece, especially with the faces of people we know, the voices of people we know, our mirror neurons have, we get that feeling that we remember from the space, because it fires off those memories and that kinesthetic connection by seeing the faces, seeing the rhythm, that kind of thing. So there is a sense of connectedness that we do physiologically get in our brains, even though it's coming through the screen. So we're going to show a clip of Mark showing how he does it. Are you ready for this, Mark? And just to reiterate, you're going to see Mark working in what? You work in Final Cut Pro, right?
Right.
But there's so many similarities in the way this works with different programs. And you're going to be, as you go, folks, through this webinar series, you will get introduced to different things. But no matter what program you're using, kind of the basics are the same. Now, we're going to show this not because Mark is going to teach you the technical aspects of it. You're going to get that in each one of these step-by-step webinars. And I love how the PRC has set this up. So you're just taking on one little piece at a time, right? How do you set yourself up? How do you get your choir ready? How do you tell them what to do? How do you edit the audio? Then how do you edit the video? We're just going to show this because we want you to see it's possible, right? And I think Mark might agree with me. If I can do it, if Mark can do it, we hope this is going to convince you that you can do it, right? And so maybe hold your questions about the technical aspects, like what button did he push, that kind of thing. We just want you to watch it for the sense of, oh, this is kind of an overall sense of how it can happen. Mark, you want to say anything about it before we pre-recorded this so we wouldn't have any glitches with, Mark's computer running slow or that kind of thing?
Yeah, no, just that it's a process. I'm sure I'll look back on this a couple of years from now and think, oh, wow, I was in second grade math, comparative to where I am now. And so, but where I started, I've come a long way.
Yeah.
So, it definitely takes time and trial and error. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So here we go.
So here I have recorded myself singing the melody through the piece. And then I'll go and grab the second recording I made of myself singing the bass part, lining it up to the original. Let's see. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round. It's a little bit of an echo, which means I have to zoom in a little bit and align them just a little closer. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. That's not too bad. And then I'll take, right now it's only showing the bass part on the screen, and I can hear the audio to the soprano, but I want both of the pieces to show on the screen of me singing the melody and the bass part. So I go up here to the bass section and I click on transform. And now this allows me to take the screen of the bass part and make it smaller and fit inside the other piece, so you can see them together. I probably won't, since I am only singing a bass part, I have no bass part happening here. Aha, right there is where the bass part starts. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to clip the part that I don't need, highlight it, and then delete it. And now it'll happen, it'll just come in. Nobody turn me round. Right. But I don't really want these two words happening at the same time. I just need one set of words. So I'll go back up to my screen here and I will click on crop. Now I can take this and crop out and only use my picture. And the picture's a little small, so I'll make it a little bigger. I'll go back to transform. Now I can make the picture bigger. What I have. Oh, where'd it go? Disappear. There we go. So, turn me round, turn me round. Good. Now let me add in the other part. Let me add in an alto part to that. Do the same thing. I have to zoom out so I can just make it a little easier to see.
I use that all the time, that zoom in and zoom out, just to help me move things around. Yeah, it's great. Yeah,
it's really helpful. And I'll just cut off the piece that I don't really need here. Okay, so as you hear, the sync is a little off, so I need to get a little closer and put that together.
And closer, whenever you zoom in, what it does is it helps you move in more incrementally smaller movements.
Yeah.
So you can get it lined up just right.
Exactly. So that's what I'm doing right here. That's not bad. Turn me round. Now you see, again, I can only see my alto self. So again, I need to take that upper part and it's already on transform. So I need to make it smaller. I need to go ahead and crop out the words. I just want my face.
And you can see that when he's working, he's got highlighted the line that he's working with. So that's how you can differentiate between the, when you're cropping things, you want to have that line highlighted down there.
Exactly. Turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Now let's say the bass is too loud. So I can go here into the bass part and I have a volume that I can mix a little bit. Turn me round, turn me round. And now the alto is a little too loud, so maybe I'll take down the alto. Turn me round, turn me. Good, and then I'll add one more part, a soprano part that a tenor part that I recorded in. I'll throw that in there.
It's amazing how you all sound so good together.
Well, it's particularly because this was like a one-take demo that I had made for one of my choirs, and I listened to it and I was like, wait, wow, this doesn't sound half bad. And this was recording without using a mixer or anything as well. So oftentimes I would take the audio parts and put them into a music program like Logic and
Audacity, or some of the things that these folks will be learning. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Turn me around, turn me around. Good. So again, do the same process. Cutting and pasting, taking the tenor part, making it smaller, cropping out the words. Oh. I don't know why it's doing that. And voila. Turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let. Now let's see how it goes to the end here. Back to La Lucha. Good. So
yeah. So you just keep fiddling with it so that everything is lined up everywhere. So So you see that, these are some of the basic building blocks that you're going to learn over these webinars. This way of stacking the visuals, lining it up, working in a separate audio program to mix the audio so you have levels. You're going to learn all of that step by step in this series of webinars. But we wanted you to see just kind of the basics and see what it looks like for those of you who haven't even begun to do this, and many of you on here probably already do, but you just want to hone some of your skills. You know that what you saw was very basic but very doable, just with learning a few things. So before we sign off here, Mark, we have some questions that have come up,
it's also great to see what people are putting in the chat, because I'm literally writing things down, learning. So,
right? I know. That's the great thing. So this one came up a couple of times, and that is folks wondering about encouraging choir singers that are used to singing together, but now are hesitant to record themselves alone from home. It feels really vulnerable. It feels really scary. One person wrote in and said, my choir tried it and they didn't like it. It just felt too vulnerable. One of the things that I might say to that is maybe start with something really familiar so that you're not trying to do something too hard, too quick, just something so they get used to it. But also singing along with, right? Mark, you were creating a track for people to sing along with, right? Tell us a little bit more about how you would answer that question.
Yes. That is a great question. Here, many of us obviously are musicians on the call and singers. And I find myself, I'm not a professional singer. I sing to make worship happen, and I love to sing, but I get very self-conscious hearing myself, sing all my wrong notes or pitchiness or whatever. And
times 4 on that video.
Yeah. So if I'm feeling that way, I can only imagine what people who really need to lean on others. So for sure, I've stumbled a couple times just in my haste giving out. I have 3 days to do it, and I give out a hymn to the choir, and I think they won't have any problem singing this. I'll just give them the accompaniment, and they'll sing it. And it's problematic because most of us need someone to sing along to. I mean, I've got the 2 or 3 members of the choir who are the guideposts. So I'll ask them a lot of times to, I'll make the track so that we have someone to sing along,
Right.
because that's crucial for many amateur singers, and I personally need it as well. So
I love that idea that you would do it in layers. So you asked your more experienced singers to make the first, get all the parts laid down with them, then send that to your other choir members who need to be singing along. Somebody, they're used to having somebody sing in their ear, right? So I love that idea of kind of a layered thing. Let me look at another couple questions. Tips for doing virtual choir rehearsals. I think that's going to be covered in another webinar. I'm going to leave that off. It's also kind of a different subject than we're looking at. And
by the way, though,
yeah,
that's I have never, since we've gone online, I've never led a choir rehearsal. I don't do that. You can't do it on Zoom. You can't. So for me personally, I haven't done that, and so yeah, maybe in later sessions you'll.
Yeah, there's actually those of you who are Worship Design Studio members or doing my I Believe Even When series. I put a link in the music document to an excellent website where it's a blog, and she has several videos of people actually answering this question about how to do choir rehearsals. And of course, you're singing all the parts. You're not trying to sing together. You just cannot overcome the latency on Zoom. So anyway, okay, some other questions that came in. What platform was used for the Even Here video? I'm not sure we know that. Do we, Mark?
No, I'm not sure. I think it might have actually. I think it was Adobe Premiere.
Adobe Premiere. Okay.
Adobe Premiere.
Yeah, and the responsive call to worship, that was on Smule, I think you call it. I think that's what they're using, a very simple kind of do-it-yourself. I don't think it allows you to have lots of people on it, but I think, and it's the same thing they use for their singing as for their call to worship. The TED Talk presenter speaking about music as medicine was Robert Gupta, Gupta. You can look up in TED Talks and see, those things in full. Wonderful. My praise team is resisting becoming a virtual choir because they like to riff from what they hear each other singing. Yeah, hello. They can't do that when all they hear is the accompaniment. Any suggestions, Mark?
Can you say that again? I was just looking at the chat, the last part.
Yeah. My praise team is resisting becoming a virtual choir because they like to riff from what they hear each other singing. So there's some improvisation happening.
Oh.
They can't do that when all they hear is the accompaniment. Any suggestions?
That's tricky, but someone needs to probably just take the jump, and so you lay down the accompaniment, and then one of your people who like to riff, go ahead and put it out there so others can riff on them. Yeah, I have singers that will riff once the accompaniment down, and then we can work with that, doing other things on top of it.
Yeah. It reminds me of your Draw the Circle Wide video that you did, and I think if people just Google that or search for that in YouTube with your Drew singers, Lydia, of course, was like doing her riffing stuff over the top of it. So yeah, you can make it happen. It's just not going to be the same as doing it live. It just is not going to be the same. So friends, we're getting close to the end. I just want to yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't say anything.
Oh.
Sorry.
Never mind. So let me just say a couple of things before we end, and then we're going to have a really fun virtual choir experience that Mark did for last Sunday to end us for our time together today. But I just want to, some of you are already Worship Design Studio members or have already purchased this series, but this is the Advent Christmas series that talks about the power of music as the content. And the wonderful thing about this is that Mark's music is featured, and he is giving us permission to live stream that. So there's and I've used all public domain hymns. So we've done it as much as possible, making it easy for you to do a whole Advent Christmas series without too much of the kind of permission stuff. There's accompaniment tracks for all of the music that's included, but also all of Mark's anthems that we suggest for the series come with accompaniment tracks. So, I just want to put that out there. We're also, what goes along with it is a film festival for small groups that choir members could actually lead. We've gotten it all written out, and it's all movies about the power of music in difficult times. From a concentration camp during World War II to protests around the world that used Beethoven's Ninth, to Sweet Honey in the Rock, to a group of young women in prison who created a musical out of their lives. That's just a transformational movie. So just an amazing, amazing thing there. So that you can find out more about worshipdesignstudio.com/believe. Also, I'm working with the Center for Congregational Song to create resources for park, I always do this, not pork, park, porch, and sidewalk sings. So filling the night with music and light, we're giving you the resources, including karaoke tracks to send your folks outside to sing. Since it's not safe to sing inside, we're giving you protocols, how to do it 6 feet apart, how to sing with mass using instruments, that kind of thing. So you can find out more about that at worshipdesignstudio.com. Carol 2020, those resources will be free for anyone who wants to get those. A reminder here is the lineup. Isn't that pretty? The lineup of what you'll be doing throughout this webinar series, remembering you sign up individually for each one. Just sign up for the ones you want to be part of. A recording will come to you. So we have coming up tomorrow, what you need to get started. So the basics, going to start going step by step. Hopefully we've convinced you that it's a good thing to try, that you can do it, you can try it. Selecting music, preparing lead tracks, preparing your choir to record. That one is you can invite your choir members to come and get instructions there. That one is also free for anybody. Of course, PRC would love a $10 donation if you're not a subscribing church, either through Worship Design Studio or PRC. Mixing sound with GarageBand, sound with Audacity, video with Movavi, and web-based apps and DaVinci Resolve. So you can see that it is step by step, and you're going to be able to, especially with the recordings, even if you come on live, you will be able to start and stop that recording and really learn how to do this. I'm very excited about this. So we're going to finish, friends. Mark, thank you so very much for being part of this, being a creative partner with me as always. This has been decades now, and I'm so very grateful for the music you put out in the world, as well as your friendship.
Thank you, Marcia. Same. Right.
Yeah, and we are both so very grateful for all of you, the hundreds of you who are on this call and will be watching the video, for all you do week in and week out. And so I'm going to put this blessing. This is the pastor where Mark serves as music minister, does a little blessing, and then it goes into Dalo.
Dalo.
Dalo, which means always.
Always.
And it's just, we wanted to leave you with this feeling of joy that, we sometimes take ourselves too seriously. We think we have to have perfection. And when in fact, what the point is offering joy and connection through using music however we can here in this pandemic. So anything else to add to about Jalo, Mark?
Hit it.
Okay, here we go.
And now as you go from this place, may the gratitude of the early morning fill you. May the love of Christ empower you. And may the peace of still waters quell your anxiety. Amen.
Always be blessed, always, always.
Amen to that. Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming on. Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Many blessings. Bye-bye.